That ship is basically as a Navy training vessel. It was designed for sailors in the Baltic fleet. The keel was laid down in 1895 at the Baltic shipyard. She entered service in 1896 and was enrolled in a list of training vessels of the Baltic fleet. Underwent several modernization, 1904, 1913, and 1935. I decided to build the 1913 version. It was initially listed as a four-gun training vessel, but the 1913 version was extended to a six-gun training vessel. She participated in the First World War and also in the October Revolution of 1917, being part of the whatever Squadria Revolucia, we call it, I think. That's why it became kind of historic. And participated in the assault of the Winter Palace of the Tsar. The kit is from Dom Bumagi, that's a publisher of the Ukraine. It's built in the East Europe tradition, which is very different than the German and Dutch way of building paper model kits. There was some consideration because problem with these kits are Polish or Russian version that there's a thin paper for the bulkheads and you have to glue it on 2mm cardboard and cut it out, which is a real headache basically, and I decided not to do that. They have this, every paper model has a kind of conventions. This one showing you is the one of the East European way. It will be marked on the parts, what's sold at a tube, glued on 2mm cardboard, Wattman paper. That's typical East European, basically. We're starting with a lamination. There's 4 sheets to be glued on, in this case, on 1mm paper. I didn't do that, cutting and gluing. I bought laser cut frames that you can get. They're an optional item and replace the 4 sheets. You only have to cut out the nips, basically. It also includes templates, whereas let's say in Germany, all parts will be made from paper. There are a lot of parts that are not included in the kit, like the masts and other parts that you're supposed to make from metal or wood. This is an example of a template, including the railing. And I also got an additional sail and mast set that you can get for the model. So that avoids a lot of work. The kit itself has 31 printed sheets, A3. I usually scan all the pages because I learned from experience you will always lose a part, and when you're stuck, it's kind of unavoidable, as good as you are. The instructions are minimal. They're basically only sketches, diagrams like this one you can see. This picture you're looking actually at the earlier version, that's still the 4-gun ship. Glue, that's one of the most important things in making carbon model. I use Gorilla Glue for the big bulk frames, so I didn't put it here. The most universal thing that I'm using is the Juhu, that's the German solvent-based glue, which I have filled in a syringe of this, and that's how I apply it. Sometimes you have to get super glue, which I try to avoid, and wood glue for certain areas. Starting with the bulk kits, here already the biggest problem. This bulkhead from the laser cut set is wrong. The slit has to be on the other side, so I had to make my own one. The other issue is, because this is not wood, this is cardboard, even assembling the bulkheads to keep them in an exact 90-degree angle is very difficult. So I started with one and included, add an angle in there and to fix it into the position, basically. So here you see the first assembling of the hull, the frames, glued with Gorilla. That is 2 parts, so makes it a little unstable to get them together, but it's still possible. Also built a stand, which I just got the wood piece and I stained it and I put pedestals through. I wanted to make them that they fit the keel, which was possible. I also had to center the center bulkhead. I put a additionally wood pieces on both sides because it's not very stable. Started with cutting the keel. I mentioned this as a tutorial. I'm using other techniques on top. You can always do this manually. I mean, you probably know very well how to cut wood in your way, but I'm using a laser cutter. This is a Glowforge, so I have the files that I scanned and then I converted into vector files and sent them to the laser cutter. This is a 2 mm wood. The finished keel is 4 mm with a double layer, basically. And that fits actually exactly into the stand. Here you see the keel, you see the that's two, so obviously they have to be glued together. And so the end result will be basically 4 mm. Here's the end result of the 4 mm keel now. This is the instruction for doing the hull assembly. So it's basically you attach strips around the frames that you have seen before. I decided always to use U. The advantage of using U is that it doesn't glue immediately. You can still move things for a while until they settle. If you use water-based glue, it's almost sets and then that's gone. You cannot do anything anymore. But I didn't start the same way as the instruction here show. I only started with the underwater hull because I wanted to paint it and the different colors. So here you see me attaching the underwater hull. I designed glue flaps, as you can see, they're not part of the kit because this plates never exactly fit. So when you need a landing to glue them, again, I use U glue and I have some stabilization here for the stand with wood. And you see the first part attached to it. That's the finished underwater hull. And here I made a big mistake. I thought it wasn't good enough. So I started to adding liquid putty on the seams, basically. The result was not very encouraging. Now I went from this to that. Now I had the problem to fix this, and it took me hours to sand, prime, and so on to make it into a useful shape again, which eventually I achieved. So this is the result. So it was a lot of waste because you had to make so many layers to fix this thing. Wood decks. I ordered also wood decks. The problem with wood decks is they're very thin wood and they are dry and brittle. I attached them. The way it works, you put a 1 mm cardboard as the first deck, and this comes glued on top. Unfortunately, we all broke or warped, so I had to rip this whole thing apart from the ship, basically. Used the original printed, as you can see here. So these are the printed decks. They're again glued on a 1 mm deck, so it's double. Here you see the model now attached to the stand, so the keel fits into the hole, not hole, but the empty space of the pedestals. The question of the hull plating arose. I had actually a discussion with Ian about it and we looked at pictures, and research is obviously problematic because it's only in Russian language. I did find some pictures using the Russian name that resolved some of the questions regarding the bulkhead. So we're zooming in on a picture of the Wernyj that I found. And you can see here that there are above the portholes, there are plates, and you see the strakes basically. So I wanted to modify the paper model kit to reflect that. Because this is the parts that come with it, and you see only white lines, which really is not accurate. I mean, if you look at the picture, this is not white lines, this is probably more shadows. So I scanned them again, created SVG files. I sent them to my laser cutter, including I made the portholes, but the portholes I made a few tenths of a millimeter wider. You will see later why. So here you see the first layer, and then for the plating, the white strip with another layer, basically, to simulate the plating. Here you see it basically painted. And what you see in the back is the windows or potholes that I made. And I show you, this is after spray painting, how I did them. So I have a Japanese screw puncher, Nonaka. I don't know if you're familiar with it, because for usual punchers, you have to hammer. This one rotates, so it's very easy to stencil. And then you see different sizes of holes you can make. So what I do with it, basically, I stenciled them from a gold foil here, which is this one is a few inch, not inch, millimeter, tenth of an inch, millimeter shorter than the porthole cut in the frame. And then I cut it into these rectangular shapes. And then here I start gluing them from the back. So when you look, I show you it's interruption, but I also needed some streaks that I cut with a laser printer and painted black. And the result is something like this. So it kind of simulates portholes, windows, basically. You really don't see with a human eye that they're behind instead of a front. Here I started then the hull to glue them, basically, as you can see. And there's still a white strip. That's kind of, and you see it's 3 gun ports there, basically. Here's a closer look, and you see the streaks, the plates, and here the paint job is not as accurate as I would like it to be, but that's how far I could get it. The model of a ship in real life had an emblem. That's obviously a difficult job. They had the drawing in the kit. So what I did is, again, scan this, create it as an SVG file, cut it on the laser, and gold spray painted, basically, and then attached it to the hull. The bulwarks is the last stage that I'm in right now. You see on the left the instructions for it. Basically, paper, 3 layers attached here, where you later will see how it will be put together. That's basically my part 1. So part 2 will be working on the superstructure, basically.